To be very blunt, many cartel leaders are very brutal. I don't say this lightly when I say that this man was the most brutal. El Mencho was his name, and being the devil was his game. This man made people kill their friends and then eat them. Like, I honestly don't feel like describing all of the crimes he did, because I feel like the style of crime he did is the style of crime of sadism, where they enjoy and revel in it. It isn't the type of thing where, well, yeah, there's of course a fear factor that you're trying to enforce onto the general public to make them afraid of you. That was definitely part of it. But there was definitely either a pseudo-sexual or pseudo-sadism, some sort of joy that was taken in this type of brutality towards his enemies, and a lot of times just innocent people, and taking videos of it and spreading it around so their friends and loved ones could see it, and so could everybody, and so turning like innocent people into warnings against wider society. So really bad. He's not the only person who did it, mind you. He was just really good at it, and that's why in about a decade, this pencil stashed man, who, I mean, I don't know, it could be an accountant. This dude could, you know, be flipping burgers at I could see this guy saying, "Can I take your order, sir?" I could see that. I could see that 100%. That man was able to take over territory in 10 Mexican states. Not take over the entirety of 10 Mexican states, mind you, but to take over territory in 10 separate Mexican states in roughly a decade. And while he did it, it's not like it was just him versus the government. Okay, that's not how Mexican cartel violence usually goes. It is a lot of times federales versus the cartels, but it's also the cartels versus other cartels. They fought with, many of you probably know this name because it's not an abbreviation, and it's a lot more fun to say, Sinaloa. Sinaloa cartel. They fought with the Sinaloas as one of their main rivals. But he made the JNGC, which stands for and I'm sorry, I am not a. You want to know what I did in Spanish when I was going to school? I did not cheat, because that would look poorly upon my you know, my what's the word? My academic integrity. My academic integrity. But I certainly was friendly with Google Translate. He was a fan of me. But they're the new generation cartel. Jaliscio. Jaliscio is the first word. Sorry.
A curd is a curd.
I like that word, Jaliscio. New generation cartel. Easy to remember. Jaliscio, not easy to remember. So what did they do? They went to an abbreviation. Even less easy to remember what it originally stood for. But whatever. Branding was not the strong suit. Okay, that wasn't the purpose of the new generation cartel. It was taking over territory quickly, smuggling routes to Europe, smuggling routes to the United States, and growing territory. And he successfully did it. And he not only successfully put himself in a position of influence, he also put his children in position of influence as they took on the family business, which that didn't mean that, hey, he had an heir apparent. That just means, you know, they were starting to get around, but they also got snatched up, by the way, in the operation we're going to discuss. But this guy is dead. This guy is very dead. Deader than a doornail, deader than dead, okay? Dead on the dance floor. Now, the exact details of the operation are still not 100% clear. And I remember early on hearing rumors that U.S. forces could have been involved. Some of that was just Twitter ramblings. Sometimes it was actual sources talking about the involvement of the United States, and they did not further clarify exactly where that involvement went or how far it was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the way that it's being discussed right now is that the United States provided support in taking this man out. We don't have a lot of evidence of the operation. I don't think we have any footage yet. We have this photograph, which is purportedly from the operation. I've seen a lot of theories about this photograph, about what it means, looking at the uniform, trying to break it down, of like, oh my God, the dude's light-skinned, and oh my God, I was like, oh God, you guys, have you met him? Mexico is a big country. Anyway, point is, we don't have a lot of details. What we do know is that the United States was involved. Okay, how involved, we don't know exactly. The most likely scenario. Okay, we'll start with a less likely scenario. One scenario is the United States went in there and did the job for the Mexican government. The one reason I'm not going to still completely discount this idea, even though the reporting at this point does not indicate it, is that there's a lot of decent motivation to carry out an operation like that in this manner. The same reason why Nicolas Maduro had a Cuban guard would be the same reason why the United States government would want to do this type of operation, is because there's a problem with the federales, there's a problem with the Mexican army, there's a problem with Mexican police, where a lot of them are good men, a lot of them do their job diligently, but if you have a room of 20 men in an operation and one of them is an informant, then that's a problem, and you're going to get a bunch of people killed. Not the informant, probably the 19 other men. And so in an operation like this, there would be a motivation, since there is such a problem of corruption in the Mexican armed forces, not to say there's none in the American, but a lot less, than having America go out and do an operation like this directly. Even if they were to say afterwards it was the Mexicans, even to say whatever they wanted afterwards, there would be a lot of motivation to do it, because then there's less chance of information leaking out. There's less chance of any of the people being involved in any way with the cartels. There's less chance of somebody being able to get paid off. Not impossible. American boys are just as familiar with corruption and greed, but it's less likely. And U.S. Special Forces, I think probably in Trump's eye right now, has a pretty good reputation after how Maduro's operation went down. Even if people did get shot in the leg, even if helicopters were shot at, nobody died, and that was the headline he was probably most scared of. And I think Trump has an ability to roll the dice somewhat. I'm not saying that this is the most likely outcome. I'm just saying that it is not an impossibility, and there would be reasons to do it this way. And even if they didn't do it this way, I more want to make a wider point of why someone would use their own forces instead of local forces in an operation of this manner. Not to say that the United States did it, just to say that there's motivations. Either way, the more likely scenario, besides that other scenario that we just laid out as a possibility, is that the United States provided information to the Mexican armed forces, and the Mexican government was able to use that intelligence, was able to use that information, and go out, find the leader of the New Generation Cartel, and eliminate him. Now, that would mean that no U.S. soldiers were used on the ground. That could mean that no U.S. air power was used besides maybe drone intelligence or some sort of signals intelligence, and that's not forces, but satellite intelligence, stuff like that is not going to get anybody directly killed by the cartels. So could this mean that Donald Trump just helped try to throw a major blow towards the cartels with no direct U.S. involvement? It does look like that. It does look like that. Now, let's be clear. Donald Trump's idea is to conduct a stronger offensive against the cartels that are pumping drugs into the country in order to try to win the drug war, essentially. He has it's drug war 2.0, essentially. I think it's drug war 2.0, but it's not just fueled by the spread of drugs. It's also fueled by the spread of drug-related violence. Not necessarily even the people using drugs and getting violent in that manner, but people fighting over drug territory, people fighting over where they get to sell their stuff, people fighting over the smuggling routes themselves, people fighting over the product itself, to sell it, because it's an extremely profitable industry, as the New Generation Cartel has found. And so it seems that he wants to fight a new war on the cartels in tandem with the Mexican government. And I want to say, when I was on the watching Trump on the campaign trail, and I was listening to people within the Trump orbit talking about working or not working with the Mexican cartel, with the Mexican government, working or not working in an operation where American soldiers have their feet put on the ground, it's quite a lot to think about. The idea that we could put our troops on the ground without the cooperation of the Mexican government. What would that mean for the soldiers that could, be in extremely, extremely dangerous circumstances? Will they be reinforced? Will they be resupplied? Will they It just did not make any sense. So the worst case scenario of possibilities likely looks avoided if we believe the latter half occurred. If we believe that this was a Mexican operation supported by intelligence. Now, according to Fox News, they're saying that the U.S. military supported the role through, again, this intelligence role through JIATFCC. Now, I'm sure all of you guys at home know JIATFCC and its extremely important relationship with U.S. Northern Command. So for the one person in chat who might be unfamiliar with that abbreviation, you know, the one boomer in chat who doesn't know that, that's the Joint Interagency Task Force for Counter Cartel Operations. That was founded a month ago, just a month ago. This is a new organization, new abbreviation. Don't feel too stupid, okay? And they created this organization in order to coordinate with the Mexican government to go after drug cartels. Now, when I say coordinate with the Mexican government, I mean the United States can gather information on the cartels and then do with it as it please. It doesn't necessarily need to give it to the Mexican government, but it seems in this case, that's what they did, where they were able to gather this information, then use that information, give it to the Mexican government, and coordinate an attack on the leader of the New Generation Cartel and an arrest on his brother, or at least his relatives that were involved in gang activity. Sorry, I said brother. Either way, this is the most aggressive act the Trump administration has taken to date against any cartel. I mean, it depends on how you want to talk about the cartels in Venezuela. A lot of that is still unproven. It's not that they're not existent. It's just when we talk about the cartels that are having an impact on the United States, the Venezuelan cartel that he was referring to has relatively little impact in comparison to the Mexican cartels that are much closer to the United States, that have smuggling routes directly into the United States, that actually make up a lion's share of American drug importation. I mean, the New Generation Cartel has smuggling routes directly into the United States that carries much more product than the little dingy boats that were bringing cocaine onto islands, the majority of which would then be brought to Europe, not the United States, to be snorted by the European club scene. Okay, that's what that was doing. You know, that's not to say none of it came into the United States. That's not to say nobody has died from cocaine. That is to just say that the smuggling routes into the United States controlled by the New Generation Cartel has a much more direct impact on America as a whole, along with the Sinaloa routes, along with the rest of the routes controlled by other cartels, than anything in Venezuela. Anything in Venezuela. So when I say this is the most aggressive action taken against a cartel to date, someone could say black bagging Maduro was an aggressive action, but I think this is an aggressive action more motivated by actually trying to counter the cartels as a whole rather than other geopolitical interests. I'm not saying there's no other geopolitical interests here. I'm just saying this is more pointed, directed towards the heart of one of the most influential and probably the most violent, no, not even probably, the most violent, the most notorious out of all of the cartels. And they took out the person who made that cartel as violent as it is and as notorious as it is. So, number one, I would just like to say, good riddance, good riddance, good riddance, very good riddance. But just because I'm saying good riddance doesn't necessarily mean that everything is fantastic and great. It's not that this guy dies and then, you know, cartel violence ends. No, that's not how it works usually. It would be nice if that's how it worked, but that is not usually how it ends up working. And for example, here, the cartel as a whole has decided to respond by attacking gas stations, making blockades of roads, and ambushing police in like areas that are isolated, or really any government authority in areas that are isolated. They've already shut down airports and they've shut down roads. And I've seen video, we're not going to look through all these videos, but I've already seen video of Mexicans trying to use the airport system, you know, trying to go through, and then they have to take shelter as the cartels shut down the airport. And they've been sheltering for hours trying to figure out how to get out of the situation and how they're gonna, fly to wherever they need to fly, where they're gonna go. And at the same time, the cartels are also blockading the roads. And when they blockade the roads, they light massive fires that everybody in the city can see. I think there's a panorama shot right here of the type of violence that has descended across much of the country. Now, this isn't like much of the country. This is a particularly bad panoramic view of some of the violence that is taking place right now. I do not want to say that like all of Mexico City is like this right now. Areas that are where the new generation cartel controlled, in those areas, not even the 10 territories, but the territories that they've lost since then, those areas, those are the areas that are seeing the concentrations of violence. But you can still see the amount of show that they are putting on. Oh, no, this is Belgorod. Sorry, different war, different day. Here is the way that they put on the show. They go to gas stations, they shut down the gas station, and then after shutting down the gas station, they light everything on fire so that everybody can see the smoke, and then they can shut down the country. And they have put out a warning to everybody across the country. Do not leave your homes. All hell is going to break out because of the filthy government. We have orders to kill anyone who gets in our way, and we don't want to harm the people. Everyone stay in your homes until the situation is under control. We don't need to listen to the music. But you can see here, cartel members getting out of the car, taking over, directing the staff to get away. They just start spraying gasoline all over the floor as they direct all of the cars to get out of there because they're going to blow it. And so they spray it everywhere, take out lighters, light the gasoline on fire, and get out of there so they're not caught in the blast. This creates not only a giant smoke cloud, not only an explosion, not only, a big scene, but it also, again, helps shut down the local economy, helps shut down the city, and, it affects locals. It affects people's ability to get services and such. Here is members of the cartel burning a local office of a bank.
Quémalo, quémalo. A la verga, todo, todo. Échale de todo. Se bloquearon, mijo. Ponte verga, no nos vayan a llegar los verdes. Mira, así nomás, a la verga. Todo.
And think about the locations that they're targeting. Think about this, right? I don't need to be an expert on the cartels to understand. Because I see this right now in West Africa, and I really want to do a segment on the channel. I keep saying we're going to do an Africa coup segment. We're going to do a West African coup segment. We're going to talk about the future of ECOWAS, but we'll do it eventually. But you target the roads, you target fuel distribution. The thing is, you don't necessarily need to destroy all of a country's fuel. You just destroy critical nodes by which the fuel gets from, the ground into people's cars. And if you can target those nodes, target the roads that people move around on, target airports, target financial institutions, you're shutting down the country. You're shutting down the country. You start taking cars out on the street and burning civilian vehicles. There's been multiple times where they've held their guns in front of people, had them get out of their cars, and then they've just burnt the car on the road. What do they try to do? To try to say, don't go outside. We might take your car, we might burn it. We might just tell you to leave because we're not the worst of the, these cartels have some idea of media game, but we might burn your car, so stay inside. They want to shut down the country. That's also in tandem with the message that they put out, telling everybody to stay inside, warning of killings. So targeting financial institutions, and these videos just keep hitting the web, right? There's tons and tons of footage of just the violence. Now, Jaliscio, of course, being the J in the abbreviation, has been a hotspot of violence. But it's not the only location. Guadalajara has been a location of violence as well. As well as Michoacan. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that correctly. I did not do very well in Spanish class. Okay, Google Translate was my friend until I got out of high school Spanish. I'm very sorry. And it's catching up with me because the bad habits I learned then in learning languages is caught up to me now as I try to learn Ukrainian. Bus transportation, you're targeting not only the means of people who have cars, but if you take out a bus, you take out one car, that's one person's mean of transportation. You make a show of it, might scare other car owners. You take out a bus, that's hundreds of people who, you know, get taken around every day potentially. You have trucks, you know, people bringing goods around, cars getting burned, of course. And when they burn the cars, notice where they burn the cars. They don't burn like necessarily where the trucks, this is just in the parking lot, right? This bus, it's probably, well, that's actually exactly what I was about to talk about. But they're burning them in places like, they burn them in the middle of the road or in an area where a lot of people are going to see it for a lot of show, and in a way that could potentially help with the blockading of the roads. So helping to shut down the city. Here is another example of them targeting a gas station. But here is the other topic that we're going to go into, and that is the government has not taken this down, taken this city down. They have responded. They've responded with force. And here is an example of cartel members going out there. These, again, this is the new generation cartel. They're out there. They're about to get involved in some horrible business, burning down this gas station. And as they're about to do it, some government troops come in, and then they drive away, crashing into each other before skedaddling. You can see them pointing their rifles in the direction of where the government troops are coming from. And there they go. There's the government troops coming in right after them. Okay, where are we next? We have more. By the way, it's not just going to be the Mexican authorities that they're clashing with. And this is the other thing. And some people are describing this as a civil war. I don't know if I would describe it as a civil war. I think you could describe it as an insurrection. You could describe it as a few things. I don't know about the definition of civil war, because when it's gang violence, it's a little bit more complicated. But these gangs have almost political-esque institutions behind them, right? Whereas I would not say like street violence between the Bloods and the Crips, or even the Bloods, Crips, and the police would be a civil war. I would consider that gang violence. Maybe if it got particularly bad, you could call it an insurrection. But in this case, these cartels have institutions behind them. They have, you know, top-down leadership structure. They have things that they give back, try to, in some instances, give back to the community. They have propaganda campaigns. They have tons and tons and tons of politicians bought. They have tons and tons and tons of agents within the armed forces, within the police structure, within local government and national government structures, parliamentarians bought in the government. Hell, even presidents. They've had presidents in their pocket. And so it's when you get to this level of strength, where you're not just dealing with Tech 9s, you're dealing with armored piercing shells, armored vehicles, weapons that can take down helicopters, while you got MPs on standby, and you've got extremely profitable smuggling routes that continue to fund your private army, tens and tens of thousands strong. Then you get much closer to something that looks like a civil war, but I would still, at this point, call it an insurrection before jumping to the idea of civil war, civil war, civil war. I would say that this is a very intense insurrection. It would have to go through a lot more developments to be a civil war, because it's not just like, I think in some people's mind, they're thinking, okay, it's Mexican government versus cartels. But it's not Mexican government versus cartels. It's Mexican government just killed a cartel leader. And even within that one cartel, there's going to be local leaders that are more interested in trying to get a better cut for themselves, that are going to be more interested in having more authority from the leadership above them, breaking off and possibly doing their own thing, or trying to move up their personal station in the organization, than they are some crusade against the government. They know as a collective, if they do not have some sort of response to something like this, then them as an organization, they look weaker, and that risks all of their authority, that risks their position, that risks, you know, their ability to collect the protection fees and the protection rackets that they collect, and protect the smuggling routes that they need to protect to stay profitable. But a lot of them are going to be more interested in probably bumping elbows with people in the organization, or with their traditional rivals like the Sinaloas. That seems like a much more likely scenario than a full-blown civil war. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I mean, if you wanted to, like, I hate to speculate. I hate to just kind of like start saying, well, if this cartel allied with this cartel, like we're in Hearts of Iron. Like this is like some I don't know, like this is some paradox game, map brain rot, you know. But there could be a scenario where other cartels understand that the reason why this cartel leader was taken out wasn't because of a specific grudge with the new generation cartel, even though of course they're particularly brutal, but because the government wants a general crackdown on the cartels as a whole. And if the cartels as a group understood that, and they put their differences aside, you know, they all sat in a drum circle, you know, passed around the peace pipe, hit a drum, I don't know, went to Woodstock together. You can draw it out however you want to. But if they collected under the understanding that they have more leverage as a collective and acting against the government with the slow creeping hand of the United States supporting them, maybe. I find that very, very unlikely because of how many conflicts these cartels have with each other. And many of them are going to see every time that a cartel gets cracked down upon by the U.S. or the Mexican government as a possible avenue for them to just move in and take over that territory, take over that product, take over that local protection racket, or whatever it is. Either way, here's more of the fighting. Not show that one. No boy. But this is the video I wanted to show. You can see they're literally just shooting from truck to truck. They're not even getting out of their vehicles. I remember hearing from somebody saying, I heard that there were Mexican cartel fighters that went to Ukraine and learned tactics. And, you know, what are they going to spread those tactics throughout the organization? And that, I mean, that type of stuff is a risk with any major war involving so many people. But so far, most of the damage I'm seeing is much more traditional. It's, well, got rammed. Is much more traditional. That looks like a cartel armored vehicle to me. Yeah, that looks like a cartel armored vehicle. But it's hard to, it's because these cartels have a lot of armored vehicles. It's a lot of the reason why they've been able to overpower. One of the reasons why they've been able to overpower like local authorities, local police forces. Man, that guy is, you know, he's got a bad vibe about him. I will say that he does have a bad vibe. Not a good vibe. Looks evil. Yeah, he doesn't look very friendly. It doesn't look like he wants to be my buddy. But most of the violence I've seen so far from the cartels has been small arms fire, blockades, burnings of gas stations. It seems that the majority of their forces still, of course, don't know how to use drones. We haven't seen drones used yet. So whether or not information got to them about how to use drones, or they've trained a bunch of people on that, we're not seeing that being used so far. We don't have anything on that so far. So I know that there was a lot of talk about cartels using drones. So far, I have not seen any footage. I will be on the lookout for it. I would be very surprised if there wouldn't be footage eventually, because it just makes sense. If we can see these types of drones in Sudan, if we can see these types of drones in Syria. I mean, ISIS figured these drones out back in 2015, 2016, dropping grenades out of tin cans strapped to the bottom of cheap Chinese drones. If they can figure it out, the cartels can figure it out. But whether we're going to see more of that now, or we're going to see more of that with cartel violence later, different cartels, I do not know. But so far, no drone footage to speak of. Here is footage, though, that I did find fascinating, which shows a government Black Hawk helicopter, a UH-60 Black Hawk, using a minigun to rain fire down on New Generation Cartel members. My goodness, man. That brr sound, man. It's something American about it. American in its tone. American in its tone. These are more of the up-armored vehicles. They're calling them up-armored. I called them armored, but up-armored is probably a better description, because they're taking traditional vehicles and then adding stuff to it, adding armored plating. But here is them riding around in the community as taking small arms fire.
Burns.
So to give you an idea,
immoral,
morally corrupt, bankrupt man. You can kind of tell a little bit from the landscapes here and the trees, but this is in southern Mexico. This is in southern Mexico, so this would be right beneath Mexico City. This is an area where the New Generation Cartel has quite a lot of influence. So this is why you're also seeing a lot of violence, particularly in southern Mexico. A lot of people, again, you would think, I guess Mexico City is the first thing that pops into their mind, but that's not any. They don't control Mexico City. They don't control those locations. It's the locations where the New Generation Cartel controls the most. They're seeing the most violence. It's not just those locations, mind you, because it seems that other cartels are likely to take advantage. But those are the locations. Hutch, thank you so much for the raid. Raid from the Bald Man. Bald Man raid. Bald Man raid. Bald raid. Bald raid. I hadn't noticed until yesterday when I was scrolling on Twitter, and then Hutch's Twitter profile just flew by for a second. I stopped because then it hit me. And he's bald as fuck. I said, man, good for him. Good for him. Good for him. I couldn't do it. Good for him. I couldn't do it. back to the war. Okay, we're not gonna call it a war. We're at this point, we're still calling it, and I still think this is the most accurate definition, an insurrection. A medium, I would not say small scale, it's a medium-sized insurrection from the new generation cartel. God, southern Mexico is so beautiful. I'm sorry, it's such a beautiful countryside to have all this, just like fireworks over it, man. It reminds me too much of Ukraine. My God. So if you guys wanted to stay up to date on this right now, this is the place to go. Okay. I am not an expert on the cartels for anybody who's just raided in. I know about as much as the cartels about the cartels as anybody else who reads like a few foreign affairs articles about them. When they pass my purview, when I'm getting my magazine mailed. But I'm not a cartel expert. I gave a basic breakdown before many of you came in here. But if you guys wanted to stay up to date about what's happening in Mexico right now about the cartels, you know what? I'll even follow All Source News. It seems to be one of the best sources right now to get out there information, pretty well vetted about what's happening on the ground, and footage as well, which is of course interesting to me. Message reportedly from the Sinaloa cartel, not Sinaloa, sorry, New Generation cartel, stating they will impose a curfew and conduct attacks in Antilopia, Morelos. This is the arrival of the body of El Mencho, the leader of the New Generation. This is the guys whose death kicked off all of this. God damn, they're strapped up. Will this even lead to change? Well, it's probably going to knock the New Generation cartel down a peg. Whether or not it's going to lead to a broader change in the cartel's power balance, general cartels generally, with the government will depend upon, the government following up, them cracking down, them making sure that their territory doesn't just become somebody else's territory, and also American support. And because my main problem was reading with Trump supporting the Mexican government against the cartels was me reading his advisors on the campaign trail, the people that would be writing the plans would eventually advise the president, saying things like the American president doesn't need to ask for permission to go down into Mexico and start blowing up shit. The American president doesn't need to ask permission to do X, Y, and Z. If we just call it terrorism, which he then eventually went on to do, calling a lot of these cartels terrorist organizations, if we just call them terrorist organizations, then he doesn't need congressional authority. Then he doesn't need to ask for Congress. Then he doesn't need to go through, what you would normally need to go through knowing what the War Powers Act is. But instead, they have called it a terrorist organization. And so far, the most likely scenario is that we provided intelligence in going after these terrorist organizations in the government's view. But we haven't provided material support, i.e., we're not going into Mexico with a bunch of planes and blowing shit up. We're not going into Mexico with Navy SEALs. We're not sending in the Marines. We're not sending in anything like that. We haven't seen that yet. And I would want only any support provided to the Mexican government to be in coordination and cooperation with the Mexican government in support of local people. But if we can provide them that support, I'm not really against it. I'm not against going after the cartels, which are right now threatening kidnapping American tourists at like hotels. So there's a direct interest from the United States. Also, they're the fucking one of the most brutal cartels on the planet who do like horrific acts. They shouldn't control territory. Mexico would be safer. America would be safer without them. But do I trust this administration to manage that? Do I trust Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, to manage any of that? Absolutely not. But if the Mexican government can just say we need support in this area, give us intelligence, that's something we can do. And that's something we can do, I would hope, with little repercussion. But I mean, that's of course being hopeful. Anyway, man, they're really strapped up for this the body transport. Man, they're doing operations all over. Like when they're in Jalisco, like this is like the heart of New Generation. I mean, the J in the organization, again, it's the J in the organization's abbreviation.
Están tirando.
It's where it started.
Mete a los niños, mete a los niños. No mames, no mames, no mames. Ya están tirando, métanse. Vete a la verga, no es cierto. No seas cabrón. No puedo creerlo. Qué chingón. Hoy, Dios santo. Dios santo. Señores, es aquí en el Grullo, reportando. Se empezó el desmadre, ahora sí. Ni salgan. Ni salgan.
My goodness. Yeah, they're scooting around troops for something. In the same area, they've got, there's clashes between them in all of these areas. I mean, all of the areas that they have like strong control, they're clashing with them. Whether this is an operation to try to take down the entire cartel, to just break it up and weaken it immensely, the scope of exactly what the Mexican government intends to do here is not clear. Here is, by the way, you'll see stuff like this. Those are the Mexican colors, yeah? But the person firing this gun is not a Mexican soldier. This is one of the members of New Generation firing at a government check. You know, putting a devil and a 666 all over your videos so you know that you're the good guy. There's more footage of them burning vehicles that they take from civilians to prove a point.
Lo van a prender y el camión. Marquen al 911.
¿Por qué?
Marquen al 911.
Well, this is interesting. So this is the government, because every time they set up a blockade, it doesn't necessarily go that, okay, the road's blockaded, now we have control of it. A lot of times the government is fighting against those blockades because it seems like they're fighting in locations all over where the cartel controls. So if they're doing that, obviously in those operations, you're going to have to knock down a few blockades. Now this looks like a blockade. So these right here, these are cartel members. Actually, I don't know if I think those are cartel members because that looks like a blockade, but it's actually too blurry to see. I see like safety vests, which would make me think what cartel member would wear a safety vest. But honestly, man, I've seen these guys wearing fucking everything. My God, look how many fucking states. Holy shit, Baja California, Sinaloa. Oh my God, of course, Jalisco, Michoacán, Veracruz, Tabasco, Quintana Roo, Guerrero. My God. My goodness. See, that's the thing too. These are Mexican law enforcement. Look how they're dressed. Dude, this is an ascent crisis, dude. This is an ascent crisis. You know how many ascent accounts are gonna be cartel member, police member, cartel member, police member, National Guard, Army, just misidentifying everybody? Oh my God. You don't pronounce the J in Spanish? The more you know. Footage from Guadalajara hospital shows people panicking and evacuating. No gang should be able to grip any country in fear like this. This is like an awful. Map shows presence, not actual combat. Well, yeah, no, the areas where you're seeing the most actual fighting, the areas where they have the most control, they have influence in a lot of other regions, but that's where you're just seeing like shit gets lit on fire, you know? That's like, that'll be, you know, they can't really do much for too long because they don't have enough control. My God, man. Here's a question. If the United States was involved in taking the guy out, do you think the United States will get involved in follow-up response if this continues to spiral out of control? I mean, let's be for real. If there was anywhere in the world that would have more of a direct impact on the United States if the government was to actually be toppled, collapse, be unable to control violence in the country, I don't think there's any, I can't think of any country outside of Mexico that would have a bigger impact than the United States directly. And considering that, I mean, this is Donald J. fucking Trump. We know what issue he cares about. He cares about that issue of migration, immigration, refugees, migrant, immigrant, doesn't wall, okay? If there is mass displacement from this developing into an actual civil war, which at this point doesn't seem likely, but we can't really say that for sure. But if it did, it would be in his direct interest to try to snuff that out very quickly before it got there. Hey, it's going to be a lot cheaper to be preventative than it would be to clean up the mess after it's gotten there. So yes, the United States will have to get involved if it continues to spiral. How the United States will get involved, I'm not 100% sure. I think this administration under Trump and Hegseth, I think airstrikes is probably, one of the scenarios that would make most sense from their perspective. I don't know if it would really do much to stabilize the situation, but considering their record, I think it would make the most sense from their perspective. Considering the, hey, we did strikes in Iran, we didn't get any troops on the ground, we didn't get any soldiers killed, we targeted the atomic program, we annihilated it, putting aside the fact that it looks like they're going to have to try and annihilate it again. And that's becoming more and more likely with each passing day. But airstrikes against the cartel, what do you bomb? Do you bomb their drug production? Do you bomb what finances them? Do you bomb where their fighters are? Because their fighters are like fucking everywhere. A lot of their fighters live in like civilian homes, everybody else. So what are you going to target? I guess you'd have to target the drug labs. I guess you'd have to target, those other production facilities. Would you just have to write off all of the people who work at those facilities as like collateral damage? I guess under this Trumpian approach, you would. And I don't think you would really be opposed to that. But how much does that achieve in the long run if they can just go down there and restart drug production, get back producing to the old, all the old goodies that make them all the money? If they can restart production, then it doesn't really matter. You might have been able to disable production in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, or how many ever number of specific facilities that you disabled, but either they're going to rebuild the facility or they're going to establish it somewhere else, maybe down in the mountains. Or not to mention the fact, if the cartels can bring down Mexican government helicopters, it's not impossible for them to also target American aircraft. Of course, a jet is a lot more difficult. So you would wonder, I guess before you would target the drug production facilities, you'd have to target some amount of their stored weapons to both prevent a strong response against wider society, but also try to make it so that each response they give is more painful because they have limited supplies, harder to respond against U.S. troops. So, any operation with U.S. personnel would have to be strikes on their weapons and their drug production facilities. And then after that, you'd have to follow up to see that it isn't just taken over by another gang and just all you've done is you've strengthened the Sinaloa at the expense of the new generation cartel. Now, you could say which one's better than the other. I don't think the Trump administration wants to play that math. I don't think most people want to play that math, even if new generation is particularly bad, particularly brutal. My God.
La verga, puras 4 letras, hijos de su puta madre, a la verga. Prendidos a la verga, putos, mira.
¿Ya lo prendieron?
Sucks for them, man. Sucks for them. Good music choice. That's what you notice. Ah, yes, the music selection. What are you searching? Are you searching just Mexico in general? No, there's an account that posts a lot of good updates. Again, I'm not a cartel expert. I'm relying on people who kind of know what they're talking about. And the main account that I've been using is All Source News. They keep reposting anything that they stumble upon, anything that they find that is useful. Oh, we got an update. No, that's somebody fucking misspelling Guatemala. God damn it. Okay, I just checked All Source News to go like double check. What is this Mexican province? No, somebody just misspelled Guatemala. They were trying to get out the news first. See, this is the ascent victories that we're getting today. People jumping on the fucking Mexican topic so quickly. It's fucking Guatemala. It's Guatemala. Anyway, Guatemala will increase its military presence, patrols, and surveillance along the Guatemalan-Mexican border as part of Operation Ring of Fire. Guatemala has really destroyed my Guatemala. The mythical Mexican province of Guatemala. The music just why, dude, don't even, you're arriving to this way late, man. I've been 4 years covering the war in Ukraine, talking to press officers, trying to get them to stop using the fucking aggressive techno pop. Just trying to, like, dude, come on, folk music, something else, anything else. No, I can't. Sorry, I can't help you. No. Can't just for once. Can I not have a country go at war where their country is just like fantastic music taste in their music videos of their published press officers, in the content of the war that they put out there, just once. Just like, I don't know, come on. I like the extreme music. I don't like the techno bop. I don't like all, no, I don't like that. I don't like it. Ukrainians should start using mariachi music. Yeah, let's switch it up. How about the Mexicans use the techno pop and the Ukrainians use the mariachi music, and we'll see if at the end of it, we've all had some positive influences. By the way, I see people saying like who's going to be like the new leader of the new generation cartel. I see some, oh, the next boss is going to be El Yogurt. Fucking yogurt. Like, look, okay, I don't know who the next boss is going to be. I don't trust Lord Bebo on Twitter to tell me who the next boss is going to be. There might be some front runners for who has the most influence within the organization, but it's way too early on to be out there saying like, hey, come on, this is it. Here's a hijacking done by New Generation Cartel of a fuel truck, where they go up to the guy driving the fuel truck. They just have the gun at gunpoint. Shoot in this direction, scare him off, and just fire at him.
Come on.
They're essentially trying to stop any fuel trucks from getting in. They're trying to shut it down. Again, it's all of the things that support the state. Transportation, public and private, roadblocks, airports, banks, fuel being transported, and the gas stations themselves. All of the process that get the fuel from outside of the ground to the consumer. Everything that they can to try to challenge the state, try to uproot the state. How many are there? How many what are there? How many fuel trucks are there? How many New Generation Cartel members are there? Well, we can check how many New Generation Cartel members. They've got an estimated 18,000 to 33,000. Tens of thousands. They have tens of thousands. Not big enough. Not big enough. What do you mean not big enough for what? Certainly big enough to control the smuggling routes they need to control. They don't need to control the entire country. That's enough to make a scene. That's enough to control smuggling routes. That's enough to, have protection rackets. That's enough to make a lot of dirty money, which is enough for them. Also, the Mexican president is still out and about as this goes on. Obviously not in the areas where the violence is most acute, but still out and about. But you can see there's a drone right above them so they can monitor to see if anybody's going to go out and try to, somebody has a pistol, going to try to assassinate president, something like that. And for her to be not only out and about, but out and about in crowds shaking hands. Yeah, it doesn't matter that there's a drone above her monitoring her. It doesn't matter that there's guards around and they're trying to do their best to check every single person before they come and touch her. Like the fact that she's still doing this again, there is a message in the fact that she's doing this so soon after the New Generation Cartel leader was killed. There's a message in this. She is very, very popular in Mexico. Very, very, very popular in Mexico. She is seen as somebody who is not controlled by the cartels. She is, you know, on the Mexican left. Some people might want to claim that that's the main reason she's popular. A lot of it, even though, of course, I think her populist policies definitely a contributor. I think a big reason she's not seen as controlled by the cartels. And depending on how the next days go and how they follow up this operation, this could really have a significant impact on her presidency. And if it's found out that she was able to leverage intelligence from the United States in support of said operation, I think I don't think Mexican society will be upset about the extent of American involvement in their domestic affairs like this, being America providing them the intelligence that kills the most notorious gang leaders that make their victims kill their friends and eat them. She's not perfect, but all right. When your opponents make people kill people and eat them, you know, I think let's be clear. I'm not judging her off the standards of like, okay, Dylan, let's have a policy walk conversation. That's not what we're having right now. We're having a conversation about gang insurrections. We're having a conversation about the most notorious brutes that human beings can create the types of things that make you question, like, what womb could have birthed that type of a man? That's the conversation that we're having right now, of course. Did they hit the boss? Yeah, no, they killed him. They whacked him. He's dead. He is dead. Deader than a doornail. Deader than dead. Was he in the files? Not that I know of. Not that I know of. I don't think he was in the files. I will say, again, I said earlier that they are clearing out the blockades. Some of them. Not all of them, but some of them. Where they can move in and they have the ability to operate there. Mostly what that looks like is their trucks coming by, pushing it out of the way, and they put it on the side of the road to allow traffic to continue. And then they come by later and probably will pull the destroyed civilian vehicles away. And this right here is what stops me from calling it a civil war. Because if they can't establish and keep control of these checkpoints, then these are temporary disturbances anywhere that they can't control them. Which again, I think better fits the description of an insurrection.